Hello and welcome. I'm Chris Caputo, and this is Executive Summit. I'd like to introduce Steph Scupham. How are you, Steph?
I'm great, Chris.
Let's give her a round of applause. Glad to have you here today with us, here for this interview. And Steph is the commissioner for the Kansas City Film Office. Now, your mission, from what we talked about and what you have on your website, is to proportionally increase the economic impact of the film industry here in this region, to sustain and support job growth, to increase business, to make it easy to facilitate film, TV, and commercial projects, and to provide coordination and leadership to those productions, and also market KC, awesome, as a destination for film, TV, and commercial production business. Now, me being in this industry of interviewing,
Yes.
I am going to geek out a little bit during this interview, if that's okay with
geek
the audience
out
and for
with you.
Okay, so I'm
Yes.
going to really enjoy this today. And we're just so glad you're here. So this is a very intriguing career that you have. Let's start with your why. What's your passion? Why? How did you become the KC Film Commissioner? Let's talk about that. Let's unpack that a little bit.
I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek. So what is your why is something I think about and have thought about
yes.
for a long time. My personal why is to help people unfold into more and more of who they truly are. So as I apply that to my role for the Kansas City region, I am simply doing the same thing. I'm helping our region unfold into more and more of who we truly are. And so when I apply that to the film industry, we don't need to be LA. We don't need to be New York.
Right.
We need to be the best Kansas City we can be. And as you can tell, there's the creative economy and the creative culture is a viable industry
Yes.
here, and film is a very big part of it. There's a lot of people in the industry that work. In the production guide that's on our website, we have over 570 professional crew and services that work in the industry right here. And I know that's not even everybody, because I'm still trying to round up everybody. Are you in the production guide? Are you in the production guide?
Right.
And sometimes the answer is no, and so it's free to list yourself. I just have to make sure you have at least one professional credit in each category you're in. So that's my why. We're kind of just unfolding into more and more of who we are.
Okay, so let's unpack, as the commissioner of the film office. So if I understand correctly, if someone wants to shoot here in Kansas City, they have to go through this office to get a license and permits, right? All of that administrative.
I will. Okay.
A little promotional
One
material.
of the ways we market Kansas City is that it's easy to film here. We're one of the few places in the country where you don't need a permit to film, which saves a production a ton of money.
That's awesome.
And the challenge, though, for me at the film office is keeping track of everybody that's working.
Okay.
And so what I need to do is be as proactive in the industry with our crew as possible, so that they can tell me if somebody's reached out to them. I make sure our presence is known in the industry, so that it's natural that they would call. And part of the challenge isn't, professional productions are used to calling a film office. The challenge is that because the Kansas City Film Office was closed for 10 years. It fell on the shoulders of some wonderful people that were professionals, and on the side carried the weight of becoming a film board and put a website out there. But it, as you can imagine, doing that on the side, when I'm working with well over 600 productions since I first started this job, and in fact, one over this year alone, in 2017, I've assisted over 190 projects. And so my days and weekends and nights are full, including all of the events, including the different pieces like you mentioned, to do all of those things that you mentioned, the jobs, the marketing of Kansas City, the tracking of that kind of information so that we're communicating what kind of economic impact we're having. All of that kind of are full-time jobs in and of themselves equally. But I need to find time and find a way to do the service work, to do the marketing work, and to do the kind of the economic analysis of it. And I'm really, really lucky that when the region opened up the film office again, Visit KC took it on, because it's the perfect place for it, because Visit KC is the tourism organization that also attracts visitors, leisure visitors, and business visitors via conventions and such. So they have photos like these I can use for my marketing. They are a regional organization. They're not just one municipality. which is perfect for me because I honestly, when a production comes in,
yes.
and they have no idea they've crossed a state line.
Right.
You know, they're working, and it's not as obvious.
And there's
to
two
us
Kansas
even.
cities here in the Midwest, right?
There's two
Yeah.
Kansas cities, but there's really one Kansas
Right.
City, and
Right.
and you can tell that because when Paul Rudd or Jason Sudeikis say, "I'm from Kansas City," you and I might know they grew up in Overland Park,
Right.
but they're Royals fans, they're Chiefs fans. We're really one, and I think that that's such a beautiful thing, the way that we are, and that's part of the great spirit that we have. And number two, it gives me more assets to sell us. There are certain things in independence that will help attract one project. There are certain things in Overland Park and like Deanna Rose that's going to attract another project. And so I get to use all of the region and go as far as I can to show the industry all that we have.
That's awesome.
So
we've
got a lot.
Let's connect some pieces. So
Sure.
let's get back to you personally. So it sounds like for you, you're not going to work. You're spending a lot of time out there, but you're not working though, are you? I mean, you're not.
I like my work.
That's what I'm saying.
It's
You're
work.
not. You're not working, but you're working.
Well, isn't that the best
Yes.
possible scenario
That's correct.
for anybody to
That's
love
what yes.
you do?
Correct. So that's what I want to
Yeah.
unpack a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
why this job? Why this mission? Like,
I did not grow up as a little girl and think, I want to be a film commissioner.
Right.
I don't know if any commissioner does. I think that it's interesting because, there are a little over 300 film commissions throughout the globe.
Okay.
On 6 continents.
Okay.
And we're lucky that we have one right here in Kansas City. So a list of ideal skills or desires or willingnesses have to be in place, I think, to do this job. And a lot of people come from the industry. For example, they might have been a producer, which means you're highly organized, you're a great communicator, you have a lot of determination and tenacity. You kind of can herd some cats sometimes.
Sure.
And then also location managers or location scouts can easily move into this job because you have to really know an area and all the assets that they have. You have to know how to put together a location's custom package for, when I'm trying to attract projects and it's starting to get real, I can read a script, I can piecemeal out all the possible locations, and then I can put together picture packages and send them in an organized fashion, hundreds of pictures that say, when I read your script, I see the apartment is at one of these 5 places we have. I see, this farm is one of these 10 places that we have. And I put those packages together and I send them off. So that's why being in locations would be an asset for this job. And I think that my particular case was, and this is so funny because my mom would tease me about this. I came up, I started loving theater and singing. So I had a theater and voice scholarship to college. I was so shy. I was such a shy kid that doing that. In fact, I had a lisp. So it wasn't just being shy. It was like, my name is Stephanie Shannon Swados was my maiden name, and now I'm a Scupham. And so, that's a mouthful for a little girl with a lisp. So I was very quiet, and I think that added to my shyness. But theater and singing pulled me out of that and gave me the confidence to express myself and emote and to really use my voice.
Yes.
And after getting that scholarship, my freshman year, I did a lot of theater, and I realized that I don't really want to perform for a living. It was the perfect means to this end, where I found myself, but it wasn't what I want to do for a living.
Right.
So after exploring that, it was about the stories and the storytelling. And so I moved colleges, I went to KU, I studied communications with an emphasis in film, of course, and so that's how I graduated. And I dove right into the industry. Like even before I graduated, I was farming myself out as a freelance production assistant, which is like low-level stuff where you learn every possible thing you can.
Right.
And as a camera assistant, and that was back when we were loading film. So I was a film loader clapper. I know, right? I missed that.
Those.
I'm like,
yeah.
oh.
Yeah.
So I was really a geek about technical things. I love the process. I love the story. And then as, kind of I learned in film school, as you're working with different teams of people, I seemed to always be really comfortable with saying, well, you guys, it's pretty easy. We just organize this and we do it in this order, and you need a location. Well, I'll just reach out to them. And none of it seemed overwhelming to me, just to pick up the phone and make an ask. And so that kind of thing kept happening to me. I started just really gravitating toward kind of being more of a producer. So, I have such an eclectic background. So my mom would tease me, I have a producer background. I have a television show creator background, and that has everything to do with me just being curious.
Right.
I was working at a small station, and I was like, I learned the camera, I learned the teleprompter, I learned how to do live audio mixing for some sports and some news, and I'm watching all these people put shows together, and I was like, I'll learn more if I put a show together. I think I'll try to create a show, or at least I'll propose one. Mm-hmm. And so how do I propose a show? So then I looked that up, and then I put together a programming proposal for a year, a show called Guided by Flavor, which is, who doesn't love eating and cooking? So it was a cooking show, but it was a comedy cooking show, and it focused on locally grown stuff and local businesses and music, and it was really, really like the most fun thing ever. And it did really well. And so after that experience, I started my own production company. I took the same show, we revamped it, we made a deal with Fox out of Topeka for them to air it, and then we would keep part of the the advertising. They would do the other part of the advertising. So that was the deal that we made. And I'm just a young person, kind of going, let's just ask, let's just do it, let's just here's an idea, and that didn't make me rich. In fact, I would always be working another job at the same time.
Right.
So, then I moved into what became kind of my first real, more professional role. I worked at an advertising agency and became their producer director. And I was their first one. And it was great because I was a young lady directing, a commercial set, directing actors, choosing actors, and producing, and at the time I was like, oh, that's fine. I can produce 4 to 5 commercials in a week or two, but boy, is that a lot. That's a lot, and it's a grind. And so eventually, after a couple of years, I got tired. I was flying all over the country doing that work, and I kind of just got exhausted. So there was a local person in Kansas City. She was marvelous. She worked at a place called Exposure Model and Talent. And if you don't know, there are over 7 talent agencies in Kansas City.
I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah,
yes.
and people don't know. It's incredible. There's so much talent here, and some of those agencies are SAG, Screen Actors Guild, AFTRA, that's for television talent, franchised agencies. So right here in Kansas City, I think there are at least 3 or 4 of those. So I called her and I said, Kathy, I heard you're moving away, and I'm terribly sorry. I'm going to miss you so much. Do you travel? And she said, I don't travel at all. And I said, really? I think I'm going to apply for your job. And so I became a talent agent. I was a talent agent for 4 years, and that was a really special job for me. I really loved it. And that's part of when I started learning how to take care of people really well. Because actors are brave, brave people.
That's good.
They make it look easy.
That's good.
And they have a lot to prepare. And in our market, it was like you also have to kind of bring your own wardrobe and make sure it's ironed. So it was like a lot of things like in a bigger market you might not have to do.
Sure.
They had to additionally do. But I kind of found myself there too. So I'm kind of collecting over the years all of these new and different things.
Yes. So here's what I'm just hearing you share is very, very interesting. The amount of leadership gifts you have, but also almost your role now is almost the producer of producers here in Kansas City in a sense, and then a collaborator and a connector. But yet it started as someone who was shy, and then you got into something that you really enjoyed that, and then from there you began to just take one foot in front of the other, and then many creators, they do a lot of different things. I totally identify with that. And then you come together with this whole big package of just who you are. You get to know who you are by trying what doesn't work over time, right? And you take a little piece of that. And it's, as entrepreneurs as well, that's kind of, a lot of entrepreneurs are like that. A lot of creators are entrepreneurs too. I feel, to have the courage to go out and to start your own business and to throw a lot of spaghetti out there in the beginning and see what sticks. There's a lot of crossover and parallels there. But hearing your story here, I want to get back to the economic impact and then some of the challenges, some of the struggles that you're facing now here with where you're at and how you've overcome them. So everybody loves movies. Well, I shouldn't blanket that. A lot of people like movies. It's such a huge
There's
cultural.
a movie for everyone.
There's a movie for
Yeah.
everyone, and you learn a lot about people. So, a question I ask a lot of people when I get to know them, I say, "What do you love most about a movie?" And listen very carefully to what their answer is, because it says a lot to what they love about life. If you really pay attention to the answer, it's very interesting. So. The economic impact of movies here in Kansas City, as far as, so your mission is to bring these studios here, or bring these production companies here, and then how can people here locally, regionally, as they're maybe watching this right now, what can they do to help to advance this cause here? Because this is something that's, it has so much impact as far as, we talked about a little bit in the green room about
millions and millions and millions of dollars,
millions of dollars. That's right.
Thousands of jobs.
Yes, yes. So if companies are attracted here and the governments are more friendly to opening up tax incentives, all that legislative
Incentives,
stuff.
Sure.
Okay.
So, okay, the easy one first.
Okay.
Really easy. The way I sell our region is through locations and through our professional infrastructure, which means our crew, and it means, you know, that we have equipment. One of the things that you might not think about, but that I think about on a daily basis when I read scripts and I work with productions, is what kinds of locations do we have that can fit that? So I'm constantly wanting more and more in the locations database. Businesses, neighborhoods, homes of all kinds, regular folks' homes. I mean, really.
So people can email your office and
Yes.
say, I believe this would be a place that
And your
the film
address
industry
doesn't
can
have
come.
to be public.
Okay.
In fact, none of your contact information will. I
Interesting.
vet the projects. I make
Yes.
sure they have production insurance. And then I, myself or my intern, will reach out to you and say, you know, we're working with a producer. Can we connect you with them?
Yes.
And so that's how that works. So the more that I have kind of in my arsenal, the easier it is for me to react quickly to a project. In fact, there was something.
So you get scripts on your desk from different people that, and they
There's
say,
a project
Interesting.
that's for us.
Yes.
I will ask if I can read the script.
Okay.
Or there are, I mean, there's so much being made all the time, and they're like, you know, this fits here, 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 and here, and they'll contact the film offices. Sometimes it's really preliminary, where it's just somebody doing a budget.
Sure.
And that's when I know
Scout
I can
locations
start
and all that.
fighting for it.
Sure.
Exactly.
Sure.
The other thing that I think is just a little bit more complex to talk about, but is really important, is that let's start with the United States. In the United States, you know, you see movies and you see the Georgia Peach a lot in the credits, right? Or you see I Heart New York, and as we already know, that, you know, Los Angeles and California is, you know, a hub for production. But why doesn't that happen here? Why isn't that happening with us? Well, the reason is because studio productions and larger projects, they look at what states have film incentives. And those incentives look like a lot of different things.
Right.
Sometimes they're transferable tax credits, sometimes they're rebates, sometimes they're grants. So it can look like a lot of different
Sure.
things, and it can behave and function in a lot of different ways. But because right now, Missouri and Kansas both are states without incentives, what I've helped put in place for Kansas City is a local incentive that just in October was passed by the Kansas City, Missouri City Council unanimously to be increased to a possible 10% rebate. The cool thing about that program is it's funded annually at a really, you know, kind of a low amount of the budget. It's coming out of, I believe, a CT tax. So that's, you know, I'm in tourism, so that is a perfect fit.
Right.
So that part annually at this point is staying the same. But the rebate amount was ratcheted up. It helps me sell Kansas City better. It's an easier 10%, so much easier to say than we have a 7.5% rebate, and this is why it's 7.5. You know, like, 10%. But it's up to 10%, and they have to do some things to achieve that. So they need to do a community give back requirement, which means they would come potentially like talk to a group of people, maybe even businesses, to help them understand how they can better participate and be represented as a brand in a project. Just for an example. And then one of the bonus bumps, and I learned this from Georgia because they have this bonus clause where if a a project does a testimonial or a testimonial videos, then they can get like a tiny bump. So we do the same thing now. So now it's just not me selling Kansas City; it's their peers. It's another producer, or it's a an above the line actor, or it's the director. So that's something that I want us to. It's very new for us. It's a year and a half old.
Okay.
We just tweaked it to make it a little more competitive. It isn't going to bring in the bigger projects. It's going to attract high quality independent film. It's going to attract national commercials. We get a lot of TV already, so I'm not sure yet. American Ninja Warrior, it helped bring them in a second time. And I would love to bring them in a third time because, boy, they shoot for 2 days and it is a huge economic impact, just shooting for 2 days overnight. It's amazing. So TV like that can use it. And so I would look for larger TV like that, but not necessarily series. It's too small for a series.
Okay. So I'm thinking as an average Joe.
Was that too much?
Average Joe.
I've got so much more to say.
You are so passionate about it. I love hearing that. And at the same, I'm trying to think, like for me, I'm just thinking, gosh, it would be so cool just to have movies here in Kansas City. Be like, hey, I live there. You know, like the campaign for us as the average Joes to be like to get behind you and to make a phone call, make an email. But we can get to that, and we'll actually have them contact your office, so maybe you can give us here locally some strategies. But let me pivot a little bit. Let me get to some of the challenges, now, because I want to hear more about you and how you face this adversity, being the creator, being the producer of producers here in Kansas City, being someone that is taking on this role as the film commissioner. What's the biggest challenge you've been facing? Whether it's personally or professionally, that right now you're today, that we can kind of maybe draw some powerful lessons based on your experience.
Okay, the biggest challenge is, and it's more or less the way that I have had to learn how to communicate this in a shorter amount of time than I used to. But it's that question, well, why aren't Marvel movies coming? Why don't movies come here? And so instead of that, I gave you guys
here.
I know,
That'd be
right?
awesome.
It would be, it really would be. But when I go into the long spiel about incentives and why a studio picks what, and that the producers have to be good stewards of the money they're given to do a project, and that a director, of course, wants to film where authentically everything happens. They always do, but they end up acquiescing also because they want more money of that to go on screen. That's a challenge for me to boil that down, and then offer up something that allows people to participate and help. And offer up something to say, hey, but I want you to know that in the meantime, we're okay. We actually have a really, really good thing going on. Just because we don't have Marvel movies.
With the independent film industry, we have a lot of powerful things happening.
Absolutely.
Here.
So American Honey filmed here, not entirely here, but partly here for about 2 weeks. It's a road movie, so they went from Oklahoma all the way up to North Dakota.
Okay.
But Andrea Arnold, Academy Award-winning director, American Honey was her first American film. She'd never made a film in America before.
Okay.
This experience. So I was able to connect with her and her staff. I took them all out to dinner when they were in for their first scout. Connecting like just people do. And so throughout the journey of that film, when it got its premiere at the Cannes Film Festival, and Kansas City, we're really lucky because the script it's a really raw script. It's a really good movie, it's about these young people who sell magazines. And you might have had this at one of your homes where somebody knocks on your door and they're selling you subscriptions, and they have a hard luck story. But it's about a group of kids that does that. But they come to a city that happens to be so beautiful, and it's Kansas City. So there are parts of Kansas City, where they stay in this motel where it's not so like lovely to the eyes. Right. But the other parts that they're in Kansas City, they're literally pressed up against the window looking outside. And you feel like their freedoms start to come loose. Yeah. And there's a great scene in the movie, and you know that they're downtown in Kansas City because you see Shia LaBeouf and you see the other star, Sasha Lane, on top of the car with like flying in the wind, kind of feeling free, and you can see the reflections of all the Kansas City buildings on the other glass building on the opposite side. And the feeling you get from seeing us gives me so much pride, but also knowing that movie, because it won the jury award at Cannes, And because I emailed Andrea Arnold right after that win, literally the day after, I emailed her and I was like, Andrea, congratulations. We're so proud to have been a part of your movie. You know, we would love you to come back anytime.
Right.
They gave Kansas City our own special screening. They didn't give any of the other cities their own special screening, even though they shot up and down. We created that relationship and that importance. And that movie will be seen, and that soundtrack kids are so crazy about. That movie will be seen for years and years to come.
Yes.
So we, Kansas City, and it did both sides of the state line. So it's great because the Missouri Film Office, the Missouri Film Commissioner, and the Kansas Arts Industries Office, and I call Peter Hasso the Film Commissioner, although he's the commissioner of all the arts, but we all came together to support that project. You know, we were all, you know, I pulled everyone together for the screening. So it's great because that's the kind of project that it is, and we were so lucky to have it. That's an independent film that was a $3.5 million film. That's our sweet spot.
Okay.
Anywhere from about $1 million to probably $4 million. So Moonlight was a $1.5 million film.
Okay.
And so one of the next movies that came the year after, American Honey, was a $1.2 million film. So we had, you know, dozens and dozens of crew on that film. We're crossing our fingers that they get a Sundance premiere this coming Sundance in January, so more to come on that.
Okay.
But that's the kind of film that has legs, that makes an impact, that puts us on screens in front of millions of people.
Okay.
So if that were to screen at Sundance, that won't be the last festival it's at.
Right.
It will, you know, potentially go to, you know, Berlin. It potentially would go to several other festivals, and then of course come to our festivals at some point too. And then, it, you know, because it does well and because it has some stars in it, it could get a theatrical, and it definitely will get some kind of streaming service. You know, no doubt.
So how do you overcome the challenge of, it sounds like, is it financial as the resistance to filming here in Kansas City, or what?
I think it's education.
It's education. So it's a lack of knowledge. People understand. They really understood the impact. Is it the people here? Is it the local citizenry that needs to understand this, or is it the government that needs to understand it, or is it who are the ones that you're up against?
Who are they?
Yeah, not that you're up against, but you're trying to collaborate with to bring them together so everybody
wins. And it's
wins.
not an us versus them.
Right, exactly.
Because I think educating us first, because we're so friendly, we're so helpful. There's, especially when we learn that of how many people are in the industry working, and how many of those people, you know, are homeowners and car owners, and their families, you know, live here and work here. You know, there's no disconnect. And because, I'll say this, there's no disconnect to you understanding who your neighbor is. But when you think of a Hollywood movie, when you kind of go like into Marvel land, you think Hollywood is there, we are here, and there's this big disconnection. But the education piece is important for us at home, and then also for our state representatives and state senators to understand the industry, the impact it has, how many jobs, that there are over 38 film and digital media programs in our region. And this business, this industry, number one, is a manufacturing industry. It's manufacturing entertainment, and it happens to support and hire many, many jobs in the arts. So I think that that's an interesting piece of education.
Yes.
It's a manufacturing industry that happens to hire many, many roles in the arts, but it also hires many, many blue-collar roles,
right,
and many, many specialized specialty technician roles. And most of those roles in a professional project are high-paying roles.
Yes.
So that's an education right there. The other piece of the education is that Hollywood becomes Hollywood literally after anything's made. Because while it's being made, while you watch it, it's people running around, it's people working really long hours, it's not glamorous at all, and it feels slow-moving, even though, you know, to make one film that's maybe 2 hours long, you're looking at working anywhere, like shooting-wise, anywhere from, I don't know, 17 days to, depending on the film, 3 months.
Right.
Right? And then you think about television series, and there's one in particular I'm thinking of that's such a good education piece for us. A series like something you'd watch, Ozark, that's set in Missouri. So each of those episodes is like 2 episodes is like one movie. And you think about that, you've got all of these. So that's the impact of a show would be huge for us. And someday I would love for us to be in that place. When we have shows that are interested in Missouri, like Ozark, and like the education one that I'm kind of getting to, there's a Gillian Flynn, Kansas City-born writer, who wrote Gone Girl, and that was turned into a film, who wrote in that trilogy series another book called Sharp Objects that was just produced and filmed and shot in Georgia, but it's set in Missouri. So I had the opportunity to start educating more state-level people. And this summer they were filming in Georgia. They had to recreate a small Missouri town and called Wind Gap, Missouri. It's not a real place. So it's not really, her whole story is not real. It's so scary. It never happened. If you've read that book, so you think, thank God that never happened. But her imagination's amazing. Anyway, it was this quaint, beautiful town was made in Georgia, and they splashed Wind Gap, Missouri all over literally everything. These big painted murals. And after the filming, the town got together and voted on how many murals to leave up, because they knew they were going to leave up some because of the tourism aspect. Once that show is out, and it should be out in 2018, this is an HBO series made out of sharp objects. They're optimizing, they're ready to reap, the benefits of that. So I was able to take 2 chiefs of staff, senatorial chiefs of staff with me. I have a relationship with the show because they were interested in Missouri. I started putting together packages for them, working really, really hard. I'm talking to somebody every day, and you become, friendly, and you respect each other professionally. And as it turned out, they were like, okay, we're getting in a plane Monday and we're going to come see you, get everything ready. Did that. They called me, said, actually, we can't come this Monday, we're coming next Monday, get everything ready for then. And it's like, these are big deal people. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to get your car, I'm going to call all the locations, they're all over the place, I'm going to get them ready to receive us at X amount of time. I'm going to put itineraries together. It's a lot of organization, a lot of happy organization, but a lot of organization. And then finally called back and said, I'm sorry, we can't come. We were told that we're not allowed to come and consider Missouri. They were able to find Missouri elsewhere, and that's what we're going to have to go do. So I said, that's terrible, I'm going to cry. And it was funny because the Missouri Film Office, I called her afterwards. I was like, Andrea, her name's Andrea Sporsick-Clune. She's been doing this for 11 years. She said, I understand, Stephanie. I used to cry too. I said, well, this is really my first big heartbreak because it's a big show. Amy Adams is the star, and I respect her highly. Jean-Marc Vallée is the director who also directed Big Little Lies. He just won a Best Director award for that limited series. Great team. And boy, to have had a piece of that here would have been amazing. So they came with me, and they were able to walk onto this set with me. And they were all really warm to us, but they were also at work. It was their first day shooting on their town set. So they were, first day of anything is kind of like, kind of a little bit more tense. But they were very, very kind to us. We got to go everywhere. We met Amy Adams, we met Jean-Marc Vallée, we met every single producer. We met people from HBO that were there, because day one is like everyone's there. In addition to meeting all these people, every time we ran into somebody different, and they weren't in groups, they were like separate. So we'd walk down the street, and I would introduce myself, I would introduce them, and they would introduce themselves, and they would say, Amy Adams did not have to introduce herself. I did know who Amy was, but each one, literally, I never had to sell them on our industry or coming to Missouri. Each one of them said, man, I wish we were filming in Missouri. No, and it was so authentic. And then we met with the unit production manager, who's the money guy, and he said to them, I am sorry, I'm the one who had to say no. And he explained to them why. He gave them that piece of the education. And then he told them, he said, the question was asked, and he answered honestly. He said, the question was asked, well, how much economic impact, like direct economic impact, are you spending in Georgia, making this Missouri, and filming here? And he said, about about $350,000 a day. And, and I'm behind them going, and I could see them going, well, that could have been, even if it was just the town part and nothing else in the show.
The sweat starts to break off the side of the pores.
It's like, well, that's an opportunity lost.
Right.
It really is.
Right.
And for all of the young people that we have working or graduating, that's an opportunity lost for them, because that kind of experience can change the trajectory of their careers.
Yes,
really?
totally,
Yeah.
totally. So how are we doing so far?
Well, the education's just starting.
No, I mean with this
What do you
interview.
mean?
This interview. How's it?
You and I?
How do you feel about this interview
You're doing
so far?
really good.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You're
I'll
doing
tell you
well.
what, though. I think we want to let
I'm
these.
rambling.
No, you're not. No, absolutely. No, this has been great. And remember what you told me in the green room? You said I need a part 2 for this video.
I was going to
and
say.
unfortunately, we've come to the end of this segment, but we're going to bring in some friends to come ask you some questions. So I can't wait for that part. If we can give Steph a round of applause. This has been amazing to hear what's going on here.
Thank you.
And with that, we will be right back.